Well, hello there. Hello there, and welcome to the Temple of the Ten Commandments. This is Sunday of week 4, and we're very happy to have you join us, and we're going to share a few things on or about and in the temple and what happens in a synagogue. As you can see, I'm wearing a very special hat today. I want you to take notice of this hat. It has a feather in it. I have a feather in my cap, and I'm going to talk about this feather in a little while. What I'd like to ask you to do, or challenge you to do this morning, is answer the following question. What is this Sunday? How is this Sunday different from other Sundays? Remember, this is Sunday of week 4. And if you look back at some of our other Sundays, many things will be different. If you type those things, what you see differently in the comment boxes, then we will know that you've actually been watching and are observant. So we're going to put our hat down and we're going to talk a little bit about our wonderful, beautiful Temple of the Ten Commandments here on beautiful Yagu Scout Reservation. Right here in our corner over here, you might see a Star of David, a 6-pointed star. It's known as the Shield of David, the Star of David, the Jewish star. There are no real explanations for why David's soldiers, King David's soldiers, had them on their shields, but it is a 6-pointed star. I like to think that the 6-pointed star is made up of 2 deltas. Delta is a triangle, the letter D, one facing up and one facing down, and because David's name in Hebrew happens to be a palindrome, which means it could be read left to right or right to left, and it would be exactly the same. I think that perhaps that is the symbol for David's name. So that's very famous, and that's a very common Jewish symbol along with many of our others. If you look at the plaque here, you also see a 7-branched menorah, a 7-branched candelabra, a 7-branched candelabra above my head, and over here also a 7-branched candelabra, our menorah. Many of you may have seen the menorah when you came to services, as you camped out and came to Yagu in other years for camping. That's very, very common in our Jewish tradition. And 7, for example, 7 days of the week. 7 in our tradition means whole and complete. So we know that on the 7th day, God rested from creating and creation. And so that 7-branched light was very important. It was always burning in the Temple of Jerusalem 2,000 years ago. And because we no longer have the temple, every synagogue now has our Ner Tamid, our eternal light. Every synagogue has it. Sometimes you will see it above the ark. Sometimes you will see it to the side of the ark. And that reminds us of the temple in Jerusalem. It reminds us of the menorah that was always burning. This menorah over here is a replica of that original menorah, and this was created by my children when they were a whole lot younger than they are now. And this has been with us at the Temple of the Ten Commandments ever since. Right over here behind me, of course, we have our ark. Our ark holds our Torah. We're going to talk about that in a moment. And on the ark, every synagogue has an ark. Many are beautifully decorated in many colors. Some have glass, some are wood. This is our ark that has been in the Temple of the Ten Commandments for a long, long time. And it has 10 phrases on it. And I'll give you only one guess what those phrases represent. And if you said those phrases represent the 10 Commandments, then you are absolutely correct. These are the 10 Commandments. And why do we have this on our ark? Because we're in the temple of the 10 Commandments. Now, inside our ark, we have the most special object that we do have. This is our most sacred possession. This is our Torah scroll. You can see on the mantle of the Torah scroll, again, 2 tablets and the 10 Commandments right upon them. The scroll is made of parchment, and it is attached to 2 dowels, just like that. And one end of the scroll is attached to one dowel, the other is attached to another dowel. This is, they are very decorative. And this Torah, this scroll, has the top of this dowel is called a finial. This top was made for us right here at Yagu. This scroll is older than Yagu itself, believe it or not. We have been reading from this scroll for about 15 years. I have been here at Yagu for 20 summers. We have been reading from this scroll for at least 15 years, I should say. And it is on permanent loan to us. This was actually the first Torah scroll that I read from when I moved to Rhode Island. This was a very long time ago. So I'm very happy to be able to have this, and we read this every Friday night when we have services for Shabbat right here in the Temple of the Ten Commandments. Now, what we read from this scroll is the 10 Commandments. Every other synagogue in the world reads a different section of the Torah each week. The Torah scroll contains the first 5 books of the Bible: Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. And at the beginning of the year, which is in the fall, we start at the very beginning, and we read through section by section until the very end of the scroll. And then we start right over and begin again. But here at the Temple of the Ten Commandments, we only read one section, which is the 10 Commandments. Why? Because we are at the Temple of the 10 Commandments. The Torah scroll is written by a man called a scribe who uses a very special ink. And he may not write the scroll from memory. He has to use another book when he copies it. And every single scroll in the world is exactly the same. Every Torah scroll, if you were to take 3 or 4 different scrolls and laid them out side by side, they would be exactly the same and exactly alike. The scroll is so long that if I were to stand you up and line you up between here and the flagpole on Tim O'Neill Field, the scroll would stretch that far. It could go all the way around this room, this temple. By the way, I'm standing in the new section of the temple. And if you've been to Yagu and you've sat closer to the back door of the temple, you'd be sitting in the new section. The Temple of the Ten Commandments is only 35 years old. It used to be down in the swamp near the challenge field, And we still have a marker from the old Temple of the Ten Commandments that would tell you, it would be sitting on a tree, and it would tell you exactly where the temple was. So if you would walk down towards Challenge along that road, you would see this. You won't see it anymore, but you would see this, and it would tell you that down there in the swamp to the left was where the old temple used to be. Now, we have large scrolls and we have small scrolls. I have a small scroll that looks like this. We're going to open it up so that you can actually see what it looks like. And so we are very careful with our Torah scrolls. Like I said, they are very, very precious. Now, I'll tell you one more thing about Torah scrolls. Jewish people kind of fall into three groups. There are Ashkenazic Jews, that their ancestry comes from Eastern Europe. There are Sephardic Jews, whose ancestry comes from Spain and Portugal, parts of Italy and Holland. And there's a community of Jews we call Mizrahi that basically have their ancestry from the Middle East in countries like Egypt or Iraq or Syria. And so we are one people, and sometimes we have some different traditions, just like each of your troops are very much alike, but each troop has its own customs and its own traditions and its own ways of doing different things. So, the Sephardi and Mizrahi Jewish people, when they have a Torah scroll, their Torah scroll is encased in a large, beautiful silver or wooden case. The case is open, and the scroll, like you just saw, the scroll is open for the whole congregation to see while it was being read. And so we have those types of scrolls, but again, they are all exactly alike. Now, I wore a special hat today. This hat was given to me by a very, very close friend. If you look closely, you have my name tags from some of the years that I have been at Yagu. But I wanted to talk to you about a feather. And this is, I think, the most important thing for this morning for you to remember. It's the first time this summer that I'm going to talk about this feather. If you remember, how is a Torah written? Once again, the Torah is written by a man called a scribe who counts the words, and he counts the letters, and he counts the paragraphs, so that every single scroll, imagine that, every single scroll has been copied exactly the same for 2,000 years. And we have scrolls that are 2,000 years old that are exactly identical to this one, who is not quite that old, but it's still older than Yagu. Now the scribe who writes the scroll, who copies the scroll so very carefully, may not write it with a regular pen and ink. He writes it with a special ink that he makes, and he writes it with something called a quill. Do you know what a quill is? If you know what a quill is, you can write that in the comment box. This is a quill. He takes a feather and he prepares the end of the feather so that he can write the letters with this quill. Now, what's really interesting about a Torah scroll is that there are some rules. The most important rule that we have here is that the scribe may not use a metal pen to write a Torah scroll. When you write, or your parents have written, there are fountain pens, and every pen that I know has some kind of metal on it. The scribe may not use metal to write a Torah scroll. The scroll can be decorated with silver, but he may not write the scroll with anything metal. Why? It's a very good question you ask, because the Torah represents peace and kindness and goodness and justice. And metal is used to make things like swords and guns. So the lesson is that the scribe may not create this document, may not create this object that is meant to bring peace to our world with something that is used to make objects of war, or bullets, or guns, or swords. And so that's a very important lesson for us, especially now. And this is the lesson that I would like to leave you with this morning, that you as scouts have it in your power to make a difference in the world. We say, do a good turn daily. Be kind to somebody else. Be honest. Be thrifty. Be thoughtful. You have it in your power to make a person's life better just because you were there at one moment to do a good turn for them, to bring a little bit more light into their world. We call that tikkun olam. We call that fixing the world, repairing the world. You know, there's a lot of pretty bad stuff going on out there. But I know that even though I have been at Yagu for 20 summers, I have never heard an ugly word about anybody for any reason. Not because of their race, their color, their religion, or their belief here at Camp Yagu. So for me, Yagu has been a place of peace, just like this quill, just like this Torah scroll. We are able to bring peace to somebody's world just by a simple, kind, good turn that we do for them. So when we part from this moment, when we leave each other after this video, I want you to remember, do your good turn. Do a good, kind thing for someone. Say thank you to someone. Make it a point. You have the power to make the world a better place. Make it a point to make somebody's world and life just a little better because you were in it. Thank you. Remember, why was this Sunday different from other Sundays? Look back. Tell me what you saw that was different. Write it in your comment box. We'll be happy to hear that you were observing and noticing and listening. Thank you, and we will see you again.